Well, hello, and welcome to Stop Let's Team Up My Legion Adventure, episode 66, where we will be covering one of the two stories from Adventure Comics 371. So there's a lot of talk about issue 371 and 372. So there are two stories in 371. The lead story, which introduces Chemical King, and the Legion Academy, which is continued in 372. And then there is a unique story that is a reprint, but is it? I did not realize this. I've never read this story, the one we're going to be covering, which is the backup feature from 371, if you hadn't figured it out, because I haven't read these stories in the archive that am I using now. I'd read them in the original issues, I think, or in a reprint. But I don't remember reading this. And this is an interesting story. And it's kind of cool. And I think you're going to kind of like it. So that was a minute of your time and know anything about the story. So let us go to Mike's Amazing World for some data. Right, Adventure Comics 371 was released on June 27th, 1968. I was 3.5 years old. I was a wee babe. I was probably a holy frickin' terror. It's cover dated August 1968. Editor Mort Weisinger. And there I'm going to pause. And I'm going to skip to the backup story, which is in this comic titled When Superboy Walked Out of the Legion. It's a 13-pager. Its artist is George Papp. It doesn't have its author here. I'm assuming maybe... Well, let me double check in another spot, but let's finish what we have here. It stars Superboy. Legion roll call is Ultra Boy, Triplicate Girl, Sun Boy, and Lightning Lass. Lightning Lass? And now let me read, and it introduces Liquid Man, Storm Boy, Tree Man, Telepathy Man, Shadow Man. And here are the comments on this, some of the trivia. Well, let me skip this. Let me go to the synopsis first, and then we will get to some of the trivia of this book. An alien arrives on Earth and puts the residents of Smallville to sleep. Uthar, the alien leader, wants Superboy to return to his homeworld, Tharn, to live. The Boy of Steel is forced to comply in order to wake the sleeping people. Uther stops on several other worlds and blackmails their heroes to come to Tharn as well. On Tharn, the heroes compete to determine leadership. Superboy wins by performing the greatest feat, but everyone misses their homeworlds. The heroes begin to fight amongst themselves, forcing Uther to realize the mistake in bringing the heroes to Tharn. He allows them to return home where they belong. Okay, so this is... when going through the archive, thought this was a Superboy issue that, came out between the two, 371 and 372. Then, as I started to do my homework, I realized that it originally appeared in Superboy 101. So I looked at Superboy 101. I didn't see the title, when Superboy Walked Out of Legion. So I went and found images of Superboy 101 because I do not own one. And I found that it had a different title. It was called Valhalla of the Super Companions. So, not only did they change the title of the story for the second issue, they inserted 2 panels to insert the Legion in. But before I get to that, I want to kind of read, in these inner splash pages on the comics, I want to read you the title, the little title blurb and synopsis of what this adventure is going to be. Okay. Because we don't have, the cover reflects of 371 reflects the front, the initial, the main story, and not this reprint. So I'm going to go over to the splash page. Is Superboy, The Adventures of Superboy as he was a boy, of Superman as he was a boy. And this is from Superboy 101. And it has Uthar putting a crown on Superboy with all the new heroes around him. And then this is the caption from the title box. Valhalla, according to ancient legend, was the mighty castle in the sky where lived the greatest heroes of Earth. But now, far across the universe, the ancient myth becomes real. For Superboy and the Boy of Steel himself, in this strangest adventure, becomes ruler in that incredible place, Valhalla, for the super companions. Okay. In Adventure Comics 371, this is Tales of the Legion of Superhero. And it has the same thing, same word balloon, same character. The coloring's in the Uther, his skin tones in one, and he is blue-skinned in Superboy. And when I go through the tale, when we're going through it in the archives, I'll kind of look for things now, more so. But the title box of this is When Superboy Walked Out of the Legion, and this is what it said. What sort of Legion adventure is this? There's Superboy, all right. But where are Ultra Boy, Sun Boy, Dual Damsel, and the other Legionnaires? Who are the heroes who have become this Boy of Steel's new companions? Get set for a shock, for this is the day when Superboy walked out of the Legion. So the same story with two different titles and two different introductions. Here are some of the notes that are available in Mike's Amazing Comic World. I love this site. I love use this Grand Database, the other one. And I'm not using, there's nothing in the index that I've been using for the other coverage, which I'm about to run out of because I'm on the 5th issue, and then I will have to probably always use Mike's or Grand Data, I guess. Okay, this story was reprinted in Adventure 371. 2 panels were added, and some dialogue was altered to include the Legion of Superheroes were not present in the original story. The story was originally entitled The Valhalla of Super Companions. Ultra Boy, Triplicate Girl, and Sun Boy and Lightning Lass appeared 2 panels on page 4, but they were not in the original story. Lightning Lass is depicted, but she was not a member of the Legion when, at the time this story takes place, meaning when it was originally issued. So I think in this point she's Light Lass in the regular Legion. So this story was written by Edmund Hamilton, penciled by George Papp, inked by George Papp. I had to get that little tidbit off of the DC Database Wiki, which has this as its synopsis. Emissaries of the world of Thran force Superboy and other superheroes from alien worlds to become residents and honored guests of their planet, with the greatest hero of their group being chosen to rule. So all these new heroes, Storm Boy, Tree Man, Telepathy Man, and Shadow Man, this is their only appearance. I like the fact that it's by George Papp, because you all know how much I love George Papp's art. I really do. I've come to love it more and more as we've done these. So there's a coloring change. You know, Tharn people are not blue. They're just, I don't know why it's like that, but they are, because this is in the Legion archives since it was in 371. I think they felt the need to print this because it became a Legion story. It had been edited and altered, and it's a way to fill 13 pages in the back of a comic, because the Legion story, the main Legion story, is only 11 pages, which is part 1 of a 2-part story. So it starts with that splash page, as I said. The character designs for the new heroes, I'll go over them as we get to them. So it's a regular Smallville story. Everybody's falling asleep. Superboy's trying to figure out. He has to stop a runaway truck. And he lands outside of town, and there is this, generic 50s science fiction rocket ship painted bright red. And then there are people for Thawne. Uthar has a big giant head and a monocle. He has a monocle. He looks like Werner Klemper, who played Captain Klink, Colonel Klink. He does. He looks just like Werner Klemper. I will put matching pictures up before I post this when I take a break to edit. But they show that, they've been watching him and they want him to come with them. And he's going to have he tells him, I need time to go and get one of my Clark Kent robots ready. So on page 4, they insert 2 panels, not drawn by Papp. I can't tell who they're drawn for. They are very rushed. They look out of place. They look really odd, and it's the aforementioned people of thing, and that's it. That's all they add. They move everything down like a level on it. not looking side by side because the only way to read the 101 for me would be read a dodgy free comic data, public domain thing. And this is not in public domain. So I just honestly, I will admit, I grabbed the title card, the front page. So you see all the heroes that get introduced. There is, what's this one? Oh, Liquid Man, who can turn himself into liquid, and he looks like a puddle. Storm Man creates storms. Tree Man, he's from a planet of people descended from plants, but he has the ability to grow extra arms. I don't know if that's his only power, but that's what he does in that. There's Telepathy Man, who has mental powers. And then there's Shadow Man, who can make himself walk through walls. And he's transparent. So that would make him Transparent Man, not Shadow Man. So they're all brought up here. And they're to compete to be leader. And they're going to be champions of this planet. And they're each being held against their will by their weakness. Superboy is kryptonite. Telepathy's Man is evil thoughts. Stormboy, the light of a rainbow. Liquid Man, fire. Tree Man can be destroyed by a certain blight. Okay. And Shadow Man can pass through any matter except radium, which would disperse his body. So they all go about their feats, 1-on-1. And Superboy wins his by throwing a metal castle into the sky, into a perpetual orbit. There is no such thing as a perpetual orbit, people. I have understand that much physics. There's always thrust needed because orbit is just a steady state of falling. Without thrust to keep you up, you would fall to Earth. So he gives everybody gets rocket belts. They fly up there. Uthar think he's great. Everything's great. And then, they give Superboy a crown. And then all of a sudden, the other heroes revolt. And Superboy has to save the day. So the heroes eventually try to destroy Valhalla. Superboy battles to save it, but it is struck down. Uthar admits that it was a mistake to bring them all there because they don't get along. And once they're alone, you realize, as in any Legion story, it was all a trick. We weren't in on it, but it was all a trick. And Superboy said goodbye to his new friends. It's a silly little story. It is definitely from 6 years earlier. There's a huge difference in comics between the two times. I'm really looking forward to cover the other story in this and its second part in the next issue. But I'm kind of glad I got to look at this. I got to discover something I did not know, that this story had been edited to change it from a Superboy story into a Legion story, and why it's inserted in the archive. I would not have put it in the mapping. Or if I did, I would put it in between the Legion issues around the time that Superboy came in. That would be the nerd in me. But she's Lightning Lass, not Light Lass. She's Light Lass now, isn't she? Yes. So it's a little out of place. So unless they were inferring this was a flashback and how they used it. But it was a fun little story. Good, nice, strong George Papp art. And a simple Silver Age story by Edmund Hamilton. You can't beat it. All right, so next week we will be covering the main story in 371 and the story in 372, which is the introduction of Chemical King and the Legion Academy. I'm looking at the art. It looks like maybe a little Jim Mooney and maybe Kurt Swan with some weird inking. But we're going to get two big stories with there's a great ending at the end of it. And some villains come back, some heroes come back. And everything's great. And it's a 24-pager. And after that, 373, we get to meet the Tornado Twins, the descendants of Barry Allen. And let me just kind of give you a preview of after that. And the Mission Diabolical, which has a great lineup of Ultra Boy, Element Lad, Dream Girl, Supergirl, and Matter Eater Lad. And I'm glad Supergirl's in one. I kind of have been wanting to talk about Supergirl. So in 2 weeks, that's what we'll get. This episode's dropping on a Friday because I just take some time off, a dental appointment yesterday, and my tooth was hurting, so I decided not to record. Went to the new comic. I went to the comic shop and I got the latest Doom Patrol. I got the latest Justice Society issue number 4. Was it 4 or 3? It's the latest one. And some other books, and I'm looking forward to reading them, and I'll be talking to it. And Sunday you will get Stargirl and Lost Children 6 and Young Justice number 16, introducing Old Justice. I finally found the comic I wanted to pair it with. And next weekend will be the latest Justice Society and the first appearance of Peter Degaton, because that's the story I want to do with that. All right, folks, as always, be safe, be smart, be kind to one another, and read some comics. Read some Jeff Lemire comics, because I got a new one, and I'm reading it. It's not new, but I just bought Sentient, and it's next in my read pile. Be good.